set out in the law. With respect to systems and processes, we're going to be starting with a review of the recruitment of registration personnel, and most importantly, the registration officers across the 290 constituencies in this country. We would want to understand the level of expertise and skills that are considered for purposes of one being employed and recruited as a registration officer, because as you can understand, that is the person who is really responsible for ensuring that the voter register within their area is accurate, is complete, and any necessary updates, they're responsible for that process for purposes of then transmitting that to the Center for Centralization of the Register. The voter registration process, and I think important here to say, including the acquisition of biometric information. We're going to be reviewing that to understand the controls and the processes that are undertaken. Voter transfer, and I know that in the course of the last MVR, mass voter registration, there's been quite a lot of transfers of voters from one voting area to another. We want to understand the controls around that and how that process is managed by the IEBC and whether it's reliable and credible. And then, of course, lastly, the voter update process. It is critical that we ensure that we are looking at a current register, a register that has been kept up to date with any information relating to people that are passed on, deceased, or any changes that need to be undertaken on the basis of applicants or voters who wish to have their details updated in whatever shape and form. And we need to understand how that process is actually undertaken, and any adjudications that are necessary are undertaken for purposes of updating the register. Quality assurance and validation processes. As you might know, in the course of the past week or two, the IEBC has been undertaking a process of ongoing quality assurance and validation of the register against the documents and materials that applicants utilized for purposes of providing their information for updating the register. That process is coming to a completion, and we will be reviewing it to understand how reliable that process in ensuring that the final register that then gets gazetted is credible and can be relied upon. Inspection and verification processes. And at this point in time, that is scheduled to start on the May 10th. We want to understand how that process is going to be undertaken, because clearly at the end of the day, Kenyans would want to be assured that when they verify their details using the EV devices, that on the day of voting, when they arrive at the polling station, their details will be in the system. And how is that going to be assured for purposes of ensuring the details are correct? Finally, the biometric registration database. It is important that we ensure that the controls around changes to the database, no one can actually get through a back door and go and make changes to the underlying database. So that those controls are going to be reviewed to ensure that only those changes that are authorized in accordance with policy and laws within the IEBC are done effectively in a manner that is controlled. The security of underlying data and infrastructure. And as I speak about security, we're making reference specifically to that infrastructure that hosts the register of voters. We need to understand how well that infrastructure is controlled. Any maintenance relating to the database or relating to the servers or relating to the infrastructure in which it's sitting, we need to ensure that that is well controlled. And then lastly, segregation of duties. Who's got access to the system that hosts the register of voters? What can they do in the system? Is that authorized in accordance with the procedures and policies of the Commission? Or is there any possibility of any ICT person who is working within the Commission or anyone else externally being able to get access into that system and make any changes that are untoward, thus compromising the integrity of the data held on that register? Moving on to, I know there's been some questions about which register is going to be the subject of the audit. I like to be very clear that the register that is subject to audit is the register that will be used in the election in August 2017. All the records in that register will be assessed and analyzed against third-party records. And this includes the most recent mass voter registration exercise that has just been undertaken. So for purposes of clarity, we're looking at all data in relation to